For your viewing pleasure, this broadcast of the Municipal Council meeting of Alpena is made possible by the funding provided by the City of Alpena. Thank you for your generosity.
We're here. Try not to spread.
Good evening. Welcome to the Alpena City Council meeting, October 15th, 2018. Call the order, please.
Hess?
Here.
Johnson?
Here.
Nielsen?
Here.
Nowak?
Here.
And Walgora?
Here. Please rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Excuse me. Any modifications to the agenda this evening? Approval of the minutes, open and closed sessions of October 1st, 2018, and the intergovernmental meeting minutes of October 4th, 2018. Any issues, changes? Citizens appearing before council on agenda and non-agenda items are allowed 5 minutes each to address your concerns. If you'd like to do so, please come to the podium and state your name and address for our records. This is the only time during our council meeting tonight that you will be allowed to address council. Consent agenda this evening. A is bills to be allowed in the amount of $626,766.65. B is a mayoral appointment of Matt Wodja to the Downtown Development Authority to a 4-year term effective October 1st, 2018, expiring August 15th, 2022. C is a mayoral appointment of Griffin James to the Downtown Development Authority to a 4-year term expiring on October 15th, 2022.
I move we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Hess?
Yes.
Johnson?
Yes.
Nielsen?
Yes.
Nowak?
Yes.
And Walgora?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you. Skip down to announcements. Halloween trick-or-treat hours in the city are 5:30 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. on Wednesday, October 31st, 2018. Anything to add? We have a proclamation this evening, Domestic Violence Awareness Month, October. Whereas domestic violence perpetrators intentionally use a pattern of physical, emotional, sexual, psychological, and/or economic coercion and abuse to control their intimate partners, violating their dignity, security, and psychological as well as physical well-being. And whereas domestic violence perpetrators cause significant and long-lasting trauma to countless women and men of every religion, culture, as well as economic and social status. And whereas when children are involved, domestic violence perpetrators' choices to be violent and abusive are parenting choices that often have a devastating and far-reaching adverse effect on the safety and well-being of children and their non-offending parents. And whereas the 2016 Michigan State Police Incident Crime Report indicated that there were 89,403 domestic violence offenses reported to Michigan law enforcement in that year, and 116 of those included fatalities. And whereas the National Center for Injury Prevention and Control, Centers for Disease Control and Prevention reports that 1 in 4 women and 1 in 9 men experience severe intimate partner physical violence, intimate partner contact sexual violence, and/or intimate partner stalking with impacts such as injury, fearfulness, post-traumatic stress disorder, use of victim services, contraction of sexually transmitted diseases, etc. And whereas Michigan is committed to holding domestic violence perpetrators accountable, employing interventions in order to reduce the risk and harm to all victims, as well as providing victims the resources and support they deserve to enhance their safety and well-being. And whereas Domestic Violence Awareness Month provides an important opportunity to learn more about domestic violence and to demonstrate support for the numerous organizations and individuals who provide advocacy efforts, services, and assistance to victims. Now therefore, I, Matthew J. Walagora, by the virtue of authority vested in me as the mayor of the city of Alpena, do hereby proclaim October 2018 as Domestic Violence Awareness Month in the city of Alpena. And we have some members of Hope Shores Alliance with us this evening. And then Ben. All right, thank you very much. And down to report of officers. Request A is a request for monetary donation for dark stores litigation. Rick?
That is mine. Some or all of you may have heard of the dark store litigation that is presently ongoing. In some communities, the big box store corporations have used the increase in jobs and tax base when requesting zoning and site plan approvals, and in some cases, tax abatements from the local community. Later, they have appealed the tax assessments levied on the development, arguing that the structures are so unique and single-use oriented that the real value is far less than that determined by the local assessor. Additionally, in most cases, they have attached self-imposed deed restrictions on the properties, prohibiting uses similar to those of the original occupier of the structure. This has the effect of further reducing the value of the property. When these appeals have been presented to the state tax tribunal, it has generally, and I think always, sided with the rationale of the big boxes to the detriment of the local communities that still must provide public services to the businesses while receiving minimal tax revenue to offset the cost. This is what happened to the city of Escanaba in an appeal by Menard, Inc. before the tax tribunal. To address this manipulation of the assessing process, a bill was introduced in the legislature last year that would address the dark store issue by setting specific criteria that the tax tribunal must consider in these types of cases. Unfortunately, the legislation stalled, leaving the issue in the hands of the courts. In the case of the Menard Escanaba appeal, the city appealed the decision of the tribunal that favored Menards to the Michigan Court of Appeals and won. Menards then appealed that decision to the Michigan Supreme Court, which agreed with the appeals court. The upshot is that the issue is back before the state tax tribunal. The final decision ultimately made by the tribunal in accordance with the appeals court ruling will impact communities, I probably should have said taxing jurisdictions across the state. Although the city of Alpena currently has no big boxes within its jurisdiction, it could in the future. And additionally, the same arguments have been used in attempts to reduce assessments of industrial and office properties, both of which the city does have. To date, the city of Escanaba and some nearby governmental units have shouldered the financial burden of the initial tax tribunal appeal as well as the appeals in court. Now that the issue is back before the tax tribunal, both sides are preparing for what are likely to be expensive presentations, including state and national studies and a number of experts. Due to the statewide ramifications of the outcome of this rehearing of the initial appeal, the city of Escanaba is requesting financial assistance to support its efforts from communities across Michigan. I have spoken with Escanaba City Manager Patrick Jordan a couple of times regarding this issue, and he has provided the following summary of donations received from communities supporting Escanaba's efforts. And these are from, I'm not going to spell them out, but cities, counties, and townships have all contributed from across the state. Additionally, the Michigan Township Association and the Michigan Municipal League are holding contributions from its members that will be forwarded once the city of Escanaba states it will be seeing this through to the end. Basically, they have said that is their intent. Settling it really probably ahead will probably not result in a in any kind of agreement that would really help the local communities. This is a critically important issue to the city of Alpena, as we have seen our tax base and ability to raise revenue steadily eroded away by the state legislature and now the state tax tribunal. I believe it is appropriate for the city of Alpena to contribute to this important effort and recommend a contribution in the range of $1,000 to $2,000, which will need to be appropriated from the city's fund balance. The city of Escanaba has indicated that in the event a settlement were to be reached, which is unlikely and not what they are preparing for, all unused funds will be returned proportionally to the municipalities that have donated. You also have attached a copy of a contribution request letter from the city of Escanaba that provides additional information, and I appreciate your consideration.
Thank you, Greg. Definitely been in the news for quite some time as far as MML presentations and the like. One question for you or Bill is, obviously a lot of cities and counties and townships have done this. Any issues with that, with spending our taxpayers' money on?
No.
Okay. I think personally it's in our best interest. I think it's the right thing to do. If it were us, I would certainly hope that Escanaba would be one of the cities that would contribute to us as well. Anybody's got any other questions for Greg?
No other questions? The only comment I've got is the same as the mayor's. I think it makes perfect sense. We've seen this in some of the unique buildings in our area where others have requested that at, when we've been in board of review meetings. So I think this is good as well, because you can see the trend is trying to go that direction. So I agree with this as well.
I would have one question, or two questions really. Do we know how many contributors, and if so, do we know what is a fair amount?
Well, the number of contributors I've spelled out to date are over 50.
To date?
Yes, to date.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's on the,
Yes,
in the
but
memo, the number.
what I wonder is, would there be others? Would there be more?
Well, they're still asking for money, so yes, there could be more. Just from the time he originally sent this, I saw where 2, 3, 4 other communities had voted and approved donations. Usually in that 1,000 to 2,000 neighborhood.
Yes, thank you.
Is your intention to contribute directly to Escanaba or go through the MML's whole?
We can do it either way. Escanaba keeps a record. It's the state on there that it is for the big box
I understand.
tax tribunal, and I would trust it either way.
Yeah, I'll leave that to, I'm in favor of just leaving that to you and Anna.
Yeah, because it can go either way.
It's certainly a sad day that we have to spend what little money the state gives us back to fight them. But
Good point.
there you have it.
Okay.
Any other comments or questions?
I move we approve the request to contribute up to $2,000 to the city of Escanaba for legal
Could you
fees.
give a number? I gave a range just to let council decide, but
Well, I'm going to make the request then for $2,000 to the city of Escanaba for legal fees and for the dark store litigation case.
Second.
Johnson?
Yes.
Nielsen?
Yes.
Noak?
Yes.
Walagora?
Aye.
And Hess.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you. Thank you, Greg. Next up is City Treasurer's Quarterly Financial Report, July 1st, 2018 to September 30th, 2018.
Okay, so now we are in fiscal year 19, so at this point, we should be at 25% of our budget. I'm looking at the report over on the left side, in the upper left corner. Our revenue in green, we're at 52.57%, which is really good. Expenditures, we are right on track at 24.89%. If you go over to the right side, I'll go into a little more detail on those. In the green area for the revenue, general is at 65% of the budget received. What happened there is we've already collected almost 89% of our current property taxes that were budgeted, so we're doing really well on that. City Hall revenue is at 67% of budget. That number is overstated. And the reason for that is because we received facade grants in this fiscal year, even though we budgeted for them in the previous year. We did accrue those back to last fiscal year, but it's still in our numbers for this year. So I'm thinking, like, as I go forward, I'm gonna pull those out so it's a truer picture of where we actually are as far as our budget. So if we take that out, then we're actually only at about 1% received for the city hall portion. This is low because we haven't received appropriations for admin charges for services yet, and this typically doesn't happen until December. But I think I'm gonna have Leland change that and do it quarterly so it aligns with this report. And it'll look like we're on target when we should be. IT revenue is at 0.09%, and that's low because fiber rent doesn't get journalized until December. Police revenue is low because we haven't received any liquor license revenue or state grants. Also, parking fines are down. Fire revenue is a little low. That's because no admin charges have been charged out, which won't happen until December. Same thing for the public works revenue. That's low because of no garage rent or admin services, which again is in December. Lights is at 0.5%, and I'm not really too worried about that. It's only a $3,000 budget. Parks and Rec is overstated due to receiving money for the splash park in the current fiscal year, although we budgeted for it in last fiscal year. So if I take out the facade grants and the splash park monies that we've received, we're really only at about 46% of budget for revenues, which is still great. We're ahead of 25%, so we're doing good on revenue. Expenditures, like I said, we're right on target for that. The only things that look a little out of place is the building authorities at 87%, and that's just because we make an annual payment on the DPW building. Other financing uses is at 0%, and that's because there are internal transfers that don't occur until December and June. Then on the second page is the cash balances and investments. As you can see, the water fund is $1.7 million negative. Our summer project expenses are winding down. Once we receive the money from the escrow account, which we're really not in a hurry for, but this will help make that number closer to being positive. A reason that this is negative is because the water fund is always made whole, the water fund always makes the sewer fund whole. I talked to Leland about it a little bit last week, and she's going to look back at Julie's notes and see why that decision was made. And we may end up changing it so that what we truly get for sewer and water is going to be allocated properly and not one full and the other one negative.
Yeah, that was my question. Is that just an accounting thing that we've done for years going forward?
Well, I think a lot of it was since the litigation, or even before that, when the township was paying not what we were charging. We were still making the sewer whole, which meant the water department was being shortchanged. And my suggestion has been at least to go back to July 1st, and even with what journal entry, whatever you do, is to make it whatever revenue comes in for sewer they get, whatever comes in for water they get, and that will begin to balance some of that out along with these other changes. And then once the escrow amount from the litigation is received, the bulk of that will go to water.
Yeah.
But we'll sit down with Rich to determine what the exact number is on that in terms of that money and where it goes.
Only other question, Anna, is there any surprises in here then?
In the cash balances?
Pardon me?
In the cash balances?
Yeah.
I was just going to point out the capital improvement fund is $296 negative, no big deal. That was because an expense for the HVAC system was paid out of there, and we didn't have quite enough cash, so we'll fix that.
Okay.
And then the equipment cash is higher than normal because we closed out a CD with Fifth Third Bank in Traverse City. And we held on to the money just for, I don't know, a couple weeks until we decided where we wanted to invest it, and we did put it, we invested it with a local bank in Alpena. That's what I'm trying to do, is just keep everything here.
Very good.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Welcome. We need a receipt and file.
Receive and file on that.
I move for receive and file.
Nielsen?
Yes.
Noak?
Yes.
Walagora?
Aye.
Hess?
Yes.
And Johnson?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Next up is unfinished business, a continued discussion on prohibiting smoking in city parks. Did you plan on
Well,
kicking us
I
off
guess-
on that?
Well, I guess I can.
Very nice memo.
I was asked to provide a report for the next time that this was going to come up for discussion. And part of what I did is, Amber provided a very good list of communities across the state that have banned smoking or tobacco products in parks or the other community facilities, either in total or partially. But it didn't have really much from northeast lower Michigan. And probably the reason is when as you can see by the phone calls I made, to, 6 communities, all but one do not have any prohibition, and most have never really had it brought up or discussed at all. The only one was Tawas, which they ban it by ordinance in their city sports complex and city athletic field. So basically where there are a lot of youth congregating for sports, probably soccer, baseball, softball, whatever, in that case, they have banned it, but all the other parks, they do not. With that being said, every community is different and sets its own priorities. So if council determines that it is in the best interest of our community, then it certainly should proceed, even if it bucks the trend within our region. Alpena is the largest community in our corner of the state, and we have been the groundbreaker on particular issues in the past. One such case was the implementation of residential rental registration and inspection. Ours was the first comprehensive program in the region, and since it has been used as a model by other communities. The district health departments have provided support in some communities by the provision of applicable information and encouragement to limit or ban such uses, and such involvement could be requested from District 4 Health Department. At the national level, organizations such as the Campaign for Tobacco-Free Kids, Public Health Law Center, and the Tobacco Control Legal Consortium advocate for increasing limits and bans on tobacco products. Arguably, a smoking prohibition in Alpena city parks can be viewed as a good public policy in regards to the maintenance and protection of the public health, safety, and welfare. As council considers such action, I believe the following issues will need consideration. One, should it be just a smoking ban, or tobacco, which would be smoke and chew, tobacco substitutes, e-cigarettes, vapor inhalants, etc., as well as marijuana in all its forms? I believe a more comprehensive approach encompassing all tobacco, tobacco-related, and marijuana products is the fairest, as it eliminates any complaints of targeting certain groups or products. The city of Cedar Springs effectively covered the tobacco marijuana variants in their ordinance that they passed. Should any prohibition be through a resolution or ordinance? A resolution sets a policy whose only enforcement is through peer pressure or at its most extreme removal from the property, while an ordinance would include penalties and fines via a ticket that could be issued if an individual refuses to comply. Both have been used by communities. A perspective from the city attorney would be helpful in determining which approach to take. I was asked, I think by you, Mike, to talk to Joel, who has stepped out, regarding, from his perspective, which would be more desirable, and of course I got going on something else and didn't do that, so we will check into that though. And of course, again, a perspective from Bill as well, from the legal end, as far as what he might recommend if we proceed with this. The impact on city personnel, especially DPW who smoke, which I'm not sure, but I think there are a few. DPW employees working in our parks often take their breaks where they are working. If they are smokers, they would have to leave the park to do so. This would need to be addressed, and ultimately, if we move forward, if we set rules for other people, we should also abide by them, at least that's my thought. And therefore, we would have to work with any city employees who happen to be out in the field, who would fall within the confines of a city park, if there is a prohibition, to educate them in terms of what is and is not allowed. That did come up in another community, where there was that concern raised by some employees. Should a ban encompass all city parks or just particular ones? Should smoking be allowed in designated areas of particular parks? This issue is handled differently depending on the community. The simplest and cleanest approach would be to encompass all parks. But now that I've said that, as I thought about it later, and I'll mention it in a minute, I think I did do it in here, because I thought about it and then added it, that there may be some that you may want to look to exempt either because of their size. I was thinking like the Veterans Park right downtown. You know, people kind of walk through it and they're in and out of it so quick. You know, that may not make sense. Or Culligan Plaza, which is, again, is that same type of thing. It is a walk-through and a little different than most parks. And the trailhead, especially thinking in the winter with snowmobilers, things of that sort. It's a different type of use, maybe something that you would want to exempt. But again, that can be up to you. Costs, primarily we would have to put up signs. I have here $75 per sign. It was now been estimated about $79. And I came up with 24, 25 signs, depending upon the size of the park. We don't want to inundate the city with all these signs, but so where we can, the least we can use and still be effective would be desirable. And some may be able to be incorporated with some other signage, you know, at least on the same post, and so it isn't quite so bad. But cost would be somewhere $1,800, $1,900, $2,000, somewhere in there. The adoption process. If council wishes to proceed with a ban in some form, I'd suggest, of course, that the city attorney be directed to prepare the draft resolution or ordinance based on your preference with council and staff input. This could be reviewed and discussed at a future meeting before being finalized and presented for action. The other big thing that to me is very important is citizen input. Really, so far the discussion's all been at the council staff level. But obviously, this will impact the general public. And I think this would best be accomplished to get their input through either a public hearing or a public input session. I believe the most effective way would be to have some type of input session, which could either be during a council meeting or like we did with the RV park, a separate. I don't think we need to do it at the Aplex. We could do it here, but to get their input before we actually draft the resolution or ordinance. The reason I say that is when you have a public hearing at the time when it's been presented and you're going to be discussing it and probably voting on it, there can be the feeling that, well, it's already a done deal. And so their input really is not very meaningful. By doing it ahead, before that's done, that gives opportunity based on what we hear that anything we prepare could be altered or incorporate comments. So I would definitely suggest probably that manner. So those are just my comments on this, and leave the rest up to you.
I want to say thanks, Greg, for putting together your thoughts and information. These are all definitely considerations I think we need to look at. I think having a public comment input session would be good. So that's something I think that we could schedule for either a future council meeting or a separate date, depending on what you think's best. And I think last time we talked about it, we all indicated that we have some level of interest in pursuing this. So getting public input and then going from there and looking at these different things you brought up would be the way to go.
I think that is, you got it laid out, that's kind of our next step, and I agree with that. I think that's always good to get as much public input as we can. Where I'm at is more in the, I'll give you my paradigm, is a lot of it is banning smoking for myself. just because of the cleanup work that I was doing in the parks and the cigarette butts that we were finding and so on. And I agree with if you're saying smoking, it's smoking of all kinds. And I would probably, be very comfortable with that. As far as, and I thought about it for a long time, the use of other tobacco products and stuff. I've never found anything else down there, so that's kind of where I'm at. I'm happy to listen to what input is and see that, but I'm kind of right, banning smoking and just kind of right on that area, so.
And I feel the same. I tried to look at all of this from citizen input and from what people have said to me. I've also tried to think of this from a youth perspective and the kind of community we want to have for our youth to recreate, to meet, to be out. I think these are serious, very serious issues for older people, for youth, for everybody, frankly. And I think that we have to give everybody a chance to have input. I think when it's time for education and to make serious decisions, we should get some input from youth, just to see what they think of us and what they think of what should happen next. I'm not saying they need to make decisions for us, but I don't think it hurts for us to ask them what they think of this. It's kind of hard to have the laws that we have and the habits that we have and yet do the opposite in their presence. So I agree. We need to very seriously consider every single item and actively seek input from youth.
I think that's the next step is public input.
Yeah, I agree. And I agree with Greg's statement of doing that sooner than what's implied as a final decision. I think I've mentioned before that my main motivation is similar to Mike's, that it's for me, it's more of the litter and the basic disgust of going down to almost any park, and specifically the beach and Michikus and the harbor, where there's just cigarette butts everywhere. It's just disgusting. You can't make somebody throw them out, but I'm not the health aspect, sure, and I appreciate everybody that's concerned with other people's health, but I've often said that it's really just not I don't feel that it's my place to save you from yourself, so if you want to smoke, that's kind of your business. But primarily I think this is mainly the beginning of trying to control the litter aspect, and then the streets are next for me. Yeah. Because that's where it goes. We all know that 100,000 people don't hang out at the beach, but there's 100,000 butts there. So they're coming from other sources as well. So cigarette butts. So with that said, I agree. I don't think that this probably warrants a special meeting, just because I would expect that we would get some input if the invitation goes out broad enough, but probably not enough to take an entire night. So maybe we can just direct staff to find an appropriate agenda that's not packed with hours of other things, and maybe put it in there. We're not in a real huge hurry to make this move. So
Yeah, I'd rather do it right than do it quick, so.
if you see
Do you want to do it, well, next meeting is right before election. Not sure, do it then, but I mean, you can do
Shorter
it the
the
second.
better on that one.
The shorter the better.
Yeah, the second meeting of that month, or maybe the first in December. Could be. I think, yeah, we just have to look at the schedules.
yeah.
Otherwise, I mean, it could always be even done, after the first of the year, for that matter. But
Yeah.
if you want to get it done, I would suggest probably one of those two meetings.
I would say, yeah, I'm comfortable with even the beginning of December, just because we're very busy in November. It normally seems like, and December kind of slows up a little bit as we get into the holidays, and we're keeping Bill busy enough, so.
Yeah, that would be fine. That sounds fine.
Yeah, we'll take a look at the agenda and see how it will be.
Excellent.
We need some action on that then, or, you know?
I don't think so.
Okay, we'll just.
We know what we
Put it on the agenda.
need
Yeah,
to
the
do.
agenda, I direct you to put this on the agenda.
All right. Nothing else on that. New business, our A is bids and North Industrial and Water Production Plant pump motors and VFD programming. Rich?
On October 1st, the city received an open bids for the North Industrial and Water Plant, Production Plant, Pump Motors and VFD Variable Frequency Drive Programming. This work will include the design, purchase, mechanical, electrical installation, and programming automation controls of the pump motors and VFDs at both locations. Requests for sealed bids were sent to 5 vendors as well as posted on the city's website, with three bids received as follows. For the water production plant, Thunder Bay Electric, $53,966, North Industrial, $42,600, AE2S Construction, water production plant, $91,045, North Industrial, $54,350, and Waste Electric, for the water production plant, $111,925, and North Industrial was $79,800. Thunder Bay Electric is a local contractor and the low bidder. They also have experience with the operating system. Funds for these projects have been established in the water fund with $70,000 budgeted for the water production plant and $60,000 for North Industrial Pump Station. It is my recommendation as city engineer that the North Industrial Pump Station motor and VFD programming be awarded to Thunder Bay Electric for the proposed price of $42,600, and the water production plant high service motor and VFD programming for the proposed price of $53,966.
We have, just, Rich, do we have one quick question? The life expectancies on these motors now that we have that new issue that we're dealing with, and how long a piece of equipment can be used for?
The other motors that are in there, the ones at North Industrial, I think have been in there since '88.
Okay.
So, I mean, they've lasted a long time. What this does, it kind of paces the motor, the variable frequency drive paces the motor to the demand, and you don't get that on-off instant start. It's a lot softer start on it. So actually life expectancy on these motors should be longer. We did look, because we're also going to be replacing some of the motors in there. We've gone out and we've got proposals. We actually got a PO out for a replacement of some of the motors. We looked at rewinding them or buying new, and it was more cost effective to buy new. So we're going to have this VFDs, all the electrical work, and these new motors. So it should carry us well into the future and be significantly more energy efficient than what we've got right now.
All right, thank you.
Anything else? Thank you, Rich.
I move we approve the bid from Thunder Bay Electric for the North Industrial Pump Station Motor VFD programming in the amount of $42,600, and the Water Production Plant High Service Motor and VFD program in the amount of $53,966.
Second.
Thanks for the multiple bids.
Nowak,
Yes.
Walagora,
Aye.
House,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
and Nielsen.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you. Next up, ACC Enhanced Police Presence Revised Agreement. Chief Jeff and Dr. McMasters are here.
Good evening. On May 7th of this year, a draft agreement regarding the enhanced presence of APD officers on the main campus of the Alpena Community College was presented to Council. Council approved the document with the understanding review by ACC officials was still pending. Since that time, several discussions have occurred between the respective legal counselors, primarily Bill and Ms. Bennett, and myself regarding certain provisions. As such, the document has undergone significant revisions. For example, additional language was required to satisfy specific federal crime reporting mandates, as well as related training for the assigned officers. Hours and dates of coverage and required attendance at certain meetings were further deliberated and a termination of services clause was also added. While the noted changes are not a complete representation of the final product, I believe the modified document provides an acceptable and comprehensive framework for us to provide enhanced police services to the college. Once, or I should say if approved by council, the department will immediately begin the hiring process for an additional police officer. Any questions for us?
I do not.
Awesome.
Only because, this has been in development for quite some time.
It has.
Certainly appreciate the partnership between the college and the fire, and the police department. And it should be great for both of us.
Yeah, we're really looking forward to this. The only thing we're looking at is a little bit of a time crunch right now. It's going to take probably 2 months to hire a new officer. We'll be lucky to get somebody on board by the end of the year. But we'd like to move forward with that as soon as we can because there is obviously a process. We'll be backfilling initially. We're going to be scrambling a little bit the first part of the year. We've identified a couple officers I think will be a good fit for the program. But we're going to be moving some people around, and try to reduce overtime. But that's just the nature of the beast. But we're very excited about it, and I know Don is also. So.
Yeah, my comments when I appeared in May still stand. We feel that our campus is in need of some law enforcement presence. There's been no real specific thing or threat, but just an overall sense that these are the time, this is kind of the time we live in. Let's be proactive and provide some coverage to our staff and our students and our community. I can tell you that Joel and his staff have been attending our board meetings for close to a year.
Yes.
And we appreciate it very much. And it creates an atmosphere that I think is conducive to conducting college work. And we look forward to having officers on campus. And, I want to thank Kara and her work. On our side, what's not really well known is the federal mandates that we deal with in terms of Clery and Title IX. Those are things that are part of our world, and they're a good part of it. And the interface with local public law enforcement, those things need to be sorted out and thought through. So appreciate Joel's patience and yours. So we look forward to it.
Excellent.
Any questions for me?
Very good. Are we actually, when we make this motion, are we approving this tonight, Bill, and then it's as to be modified, or?
No, this is.
There's no
This
modification.
is your final motion.
This is the
Okay.
modified.
All right.
That was I took that same statement out of context in the
Yes.
memo.
Yeah.
I didn't want to speak for Joel, but
Well, if I could clarify, and again,
Please.
the memo was to, basically, I didn't want to hit bullet point by bullet point of all the changes that were made, try to hit the highlights there.
Mhm.
Undoubtedly, and we've discussed this, Don and I will be meeting probably more frequently in the beginning, but this is going to be tweaked. As we go along the program, we're going to find that this needs to be amended, or this, that will work better in a different way. So we'll be communicating those needs on both ends here. And so undoubtedly throughout the process, there's going to be changes. But what we're asking for tonight is the agreement as presented tonight be approved.
Mhm.
And if so, then we can get rolling on this.
Thanks for the clarification, Joe.
Thank you, sir.
Mhm. I move we approve this agreement for enhanced law enforcement coverage with Alpena Community College.
Second.
Walagora?
I
Hess?
Yes.
Johnson?
Yes.
Nielsen?
Yes.
And Noak?
Yes.
Motion carried.
thank you.
Could I just ask, Don, when will your board, have they voted on this yet, or when, if not, when will they?
We meet day after tomorrow.
Oh,
If you want them to ratify it, we could do that. We could add that to the agenda. They're solidly supportive of moving ahead. So. I'm
Yeah, I was
open.
just out of curiosity as far as when you, because we can go ahead and sign it, and we'll get it to you, and once your board does, then you know, approves it, then you can sign it as well.
Would you think that would be a smart move? Yeah, let's do that, let's do it that way.
Okay.
Excellent. Thank you, Don.
I know.
Wow.
I don't know why.
All right. Next up is the 1-month extension of existing city property and liability insurance.
Okay, due to a delay in getting the final appraisal report from Asset Works, we actually still don't have the final. It's a second version of the preliminary report. The request for proposal for insurance was advertised a week later than planned. So our insurance coverage is set to expire on December 1st. The bid is currently out there right now. I posted it last week on the 8th and put a deadline of the 26th. So really, it's only 3 weeks. And in more conversations that I had with insurance agents, that's a really tight window to bid out such a large project. So I contacted Steve Wilson at Alpena Agency, who is our current carrier, about possibly extending coverage another month just to allow more time for proposals to be submitted. According to Mr. Wilson, the policy would be issued for a 1-year renewal with the premium due date delayed until January. Normally, we would pay in December, but so we can always cancel insurance at any time. We have to do, they can't just do a 1-month renewal, it has to be a full year, but we would just cancel it when we find out who our new, our lowest bidder would be, or however we choose. So if we do choose another carrier, we would only be billed for the amount of days that the policy is in effect. All of the policies would be canceled prorate, resulting in no penalty. It is my recommendation as Clerk Treasurer Finance Director to extend the current insurance coverage for 1 year to allow more time to receive proposals. A recommendation would be made at the December 3rd council meeting after all proposals have been reviewed.
What do we figured it at, about 3
3
weeks?
weeks. So we
3
give
week
them,
bid process.
yeah, we give until about the middle of November, and then that would give me enough time to review and get that on the agenda for December 3rd. Then that would give them a few weeks to prepare the policy and put it in place for January 1st.
Okay.
I just think it's a really tight window the way we have it right now. I just pretty much followed what Karen had prepared last year, and she put in 4 weeks. So that was even tight too.
Okay.
One agent said they normally get about 90 days, and I thought that was really stretching it. But
45.
we would give them 6 weeks if approved.
Okay. I move we approve the request to extend our current insurance for 1 year.
Yes.
Second.
Hess,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Nielsen,
Yes.
Nowak,
Yes.
and Walagora.
Aye.
Motion carried.
I move we adjourn to closed session to discuss water and sewer litigation.
Second.
Johnson,
Yes.
Nielsen,
Yes.
Nowak,
Yes.
Walagora,
Aye.
and Hess.
Yes.
Motion carried.